Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football recruiting specifically today. My co-host, Dylan Callahan-Crawley. Dylan, it is National Signing Day. All 26 recruits have signed with Penn State today. Let's go position by position. Let's just make this kind of simple. I'm going to start with quarterback. Right now, there's only one. We know they're still pushing Bryce Baker. We know he's not signing this week from North Carolina, the top 100 recruit. But they did get Beckham Kritza. Beckham Kritza was a four-star when he committed. Was in Colorado when he committed, actually. And went to Florida to play high school football for his senior year and transferred high schools again and played at Chaminade. What is Penn State getting in him, and what kind of caliber quarterback is this?
Yeah, and I'd actually mention we don't have it on our thing, but it should be 27 actually because they're going to be signing kicker Matthew Parker uh,
Mm-hmm.
as well as this class. But yeah, Beckham Kritz, I mean, former four-star prospect, downgraded to a three-star prospect, well-traveled kid, has been Colorado, California, Florida, currently in Florida on his second high school this season. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's upside here, but it's a long-term project for Kritza. There's a lot in his game that he's going to have to continue to develop, but he has a big arm. That's what really stands out when you look at him. He has that prototypical quarterback size. It's just a matter, is he going to be able to put it all together? Is he going to be able to develop that? And he's going to, if does he, will he have the patience to sit and wait and develop? In my opinion, as well, is going to be something that determines how successful he is at the college level. But definitely a long term project in my opinion. With Kritz has some upside, but it'll be a question if he ever does put it together.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've talked about this quite a bit on the pod. I'm indifferent on this take. He got benched by his high school team his senior year, transferred, went to Chaminade, did a little bit better, so I'll give him credit. But Miami Central, he didn't really do much. Um, let's just kind of move on. Running back room, two 4 stars. Alaquippa running back, 4-star running back. I just said 4-star running back 5 times. But Tyke Hayes and 4-star Imhotep running back Japreed Coleman, both Pennsylvania guys, both kind of a little bit different, but both also 6'1". Big, little bit of a bigger backs, I should say.
Yeah, both of these are guys that I really like as part of this Penn State recruiting class. This is a class that had, at one time or another, four different running backs committed to them. Alvin Henderson was committed. He signed with Auburn. Keandre Barker's still out there without a program. We'll see if he signs sometime in February. But yeah, the two running backs that did sign today, Tyke Hayes and Jabri Coleman, both really outstanding running backs, both four-star prospects. I think Tyke Hayes could easily be in the Rivals 250. Highly productive running back out of Aliquippa, obviously a high school that's produced plenty of talent over uh, history. Um, well-built running back, 5'10", 185, 190. Actually, sorry, we have him 6'1", 190 right now. Um, Penn State may have actually had him a little higher today. Either way, well-built running back, physical running back, but also has a pretty good athleticism. Not gonna be a burner at the college level, but he's more athletic than I think people give him credit for. Um, Never gonna be super flashy, but at the end of the day, he's gonna get the job done. Kind of, in my opinion, a lot like a current Penn State running back in Katron Allen.
Okay. Okay.
And then Jabri Coleman, again, solid size, good patience, good vision.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not again the fastest guy, not the most elusive guy, but does have some elusiveness, does have some speed to his game, but is very much also a power running back. Can be a threat out of the backfield, has shown that in his career as well. So two similar running backs, but two guys I think will complement each other really well and be good fits in this Penn State running back room as well.
Yeah, no, definitely just keep building on that if you're a Sider. Coach Sider is among the best, so got to trust him.
Yeah, absolutely.
4 wide receivers in this one. A little bit different wide receivers. We got a speedster. We got a
Yeah.
highly ranked 4-star. A guy that actually was recruited as a defensive end at one, or talked about it as a defensive end at one point, and then a guy who was kind of a late bloomer, I guess you could say, in Lyric Samuel, but kind of not
Yeah.
really.
Um, in a way, in his own way.
Hmm.
First, I was talking about Tyke Hayes' size and what the program had him in.
Hmm.
Penn State has him at 5'10", 210, 5'11",
Okay.
210. So really well built. And Jabri Coleman, they had at 6', 200. So yeah, the wide receivers. I think this is a really nice class from Marcus Higgins. Um, the nice part about today is that Penn State really announced a lot of these prospects together in their position groups. So as we go through them, it's easy to organize. But Lyric Samuel, I think, is my favorite receiver of the group. I mean, great size, 6'4", 170, so it does have to add more weight. But big body wide receiver, which, the wide receiver room currently lacks that type of size. Really good athlete, quick, quick off the ball, gets open easily. Um, and then I think he has really good speed out as well in the open field. Strong, consistent hands, I think, is the other thing that really stands out on film with him. And a really nice catch radius. Uh, Gonna need time to get bigger, but once he gets bigger in terms of that mass and then is able to refine some parts of his game, I think he has a chance to be a really nice weapon for Penn State offensively. Jeff Exiner out of McDonough School. Penn State obviously has a ton of ties too. They have him in this class at 6'1", 220, so already well built. A little bit below that 6'3" that we had him at, but again, 6'1", 220, which is still excellent size. Strong hands, the measurables are there, the physicality is there. Um, Not solid, not great speed, but solid. Um, but I think that size, that speed, um, and his strength overall, because this is a guy who, if I remember correctly, at the beginning of the cycle, we were talking about could he be a defensive end at the next level instead of a wide receiver. Um, he's going to be a wide receiver, but I think, the word possession, a possession receiver would probably fit the mold with him. I don't think he's going to stretch the field necessarily, but he's going to be, I think, a wide receiver if he continues to develop that whoever the signal caller is for Penn State can rely on to throw the ball, and he's going to catch it, and he's going to be able to fight for those extra yards. Maybe not, racking up 10, 15, 20 yards after the catch, but he's going to get those extra few yards that turn, a 3rd and 5 into a first down, or go from 2nd and 10, and instead of being at 3rd and 5, you get a first down. And then, yeah, Kobe Howard, similar wide receiver to Jeff Exiner. Penn State has him at, uh, let's see, 5'11", 185. Not a super speedy wide receiver. Probably not going to stretch the field consistently, but strong route runner, strong hands. Very much a possession like wide receiver as well. I think he could have a similar kind of uh, style to maybe a Deshaun Hamilton, who many Penn State fans remember, and of course I believe is still the all-time receptions leader for the Nittany Lions. Matthew Alden, Virginia Tech flip in September. Yeah, September. I think maybe not a day one guy for Penn State, but a guy who can make an impact early in his career. His route running will need to get better, but he has the athleticism and he has the hands to be an explosive playmaker. Probably the highest ceiling of the bunch, in my opinion. Again, maybe not a day one guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him on the field next season.
Now, I'm going to debate with you real quick.
Sure.
I know you said a solid class for Higgins. Most people are going to look at three stars, and 3 out of the 4 kids being 3 stars or
Sure.
lower,
Sure.
and think like, what the hell? Now, I think the best of the group is Lyric Samuel. I think he has the highest ceiling, but the rest of them, like, I'm really not sold. Jeff Exiner, like we said before, we talked about him being a defensive end at one point.
Yeah.
Kobe Howard was coming off an injury and really didn't have that same speed that he had before the injury. And then Matthew Alton, you just said he's raw. Like, he's got the speed, he's got tools to work with. So I'm not even really mad about that one. I think that he has tools. I think the other two is where I really start to question things, because Exiner didn't really seem like he was going to be a take, and now he's a take down the line, obviously. But I question Higgins and his recruiting right now still.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an elite wide receiver class. It's not going to be one that moves the needle for a lot of Penn State fans or analysts, I
Mm-hmm.
think. But you look at the upside that you have in Samuel and Alden, especially, and it comes down to Hagen's ability to develop. That was kind of the
Yeah.
hallmark at Virginia. His recruiting at Virginia never was top of the line.
Hmm.
Now, different resources there, obviously,
Of
too.
course. Yeah.
But you saw the development he had at Virginia. It's
Hmm.
all going to be about that ability to develop at Penn State. And this is, yeah, this isn't going to be a class that moves the needle on paper. It's not, an Ohio State class by any means. But
Hmm.
if Sandler and Alden can especially develop into the wide receivers they project to be, that would be a really, really big win for Penn State. And then Exeter and Howard, I think, have floors. I think Howard has a floor, especially that I think we'll see Howard on the field. What type of impact? Not necessarily next season, but at some point, what level of impact he makes is still, going to be decided. Exeter, I think, has a good chance to eventually see the field consistent as well. But obviously, those two, I think, are a little bit of the more, I don't know, flash. They're not. They're definitely not the flashiest wide receiver pickups, but I know us here at Rivals are especially impressive on Howard. And at the end of the day,
Hmm.
Howard went down to that 5-star camp in Jacksonville this summer and really impressed
Hmm.
our guys against some really high level talent nationally. So we'll see what he's able to do. He's been productive in his career, so we'll see what he can do. But I think yeah, not an elite wide receiver class, but it's a good start. You combine it with what they did last year, it's a good start, like I said.
Okay. Fair enough. Tight end. Matt Henderson, 4-star coming in. We know
Yeah,
he's the star of the class.
yeah,
They just landed Brian Kordovich, so I don't really want to ask you too much about him because we just did a whole podcast on him.
yeah.
But they also have a shot at Andrew Olish still. What do you kind of think about this tight end class? Is it boom or bust if with Olish, or is it still a solid class?
Oh, I think it's a great class with Henderson and Kordovich. Or they get Olish, it's a phenomenal class.
Hmm.
Henderson fits the mold of what Penn State has in that room currently. Big bodied athlete, strong,
Hmm.
consistent hands, good route runner, great, great athlete. Um, he has all the traits that we've seen in previous Penn State tight ends to be successful, and he has a chance to, you know, be the next in line there after whether it's Reynolds or Rapelier or whoever it may be.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm really big on Matt Henderson, one of my favorite prospects in this class. And then, yeah, you talk about a little bit Brian Kurtovich, who just committed on Tuesday, Tuesday. Um, very similar to Henderson. Maybe not
Hmm.
as strong as an athlete, but still, unique blend of size and speed for his position. Um, Willingness to be physical and a good blocker. He should be a good fit inside that tight end room.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think both combined, it's a really, really nice tight end class. And then if they add Olish, I mean, that would be phenomenal. Notably, Lincoln Cure stayed committed to Kansas State today. So
Hmm.
Oregon is still very much in it for Olish. Michigan
That's
wants
probably.
to keep him. Penn State wants to flip him. So I mean, this is I think a true three-team race from the outside, at least heading into Friday. I think
Hmm.
we'll we'll know his decision come Friday. Um,
Yeah.
Perhaps he already knows his, but from where we stand, it's a true three-team race heading into the final days of that one.
Yeah. Keep an eye on the Lions Den forum on pennstate.rivals.com for that one, for more info on that one. Offensive line. I kind of said it before they got Goodman. I think Goodman was the prize jewel of this class, and that would either make or break this cycle of these four
Yeah.
guys. But Malachi Goodman, Mike Troutman, Owen Alciani, and Brady O'Hara.
Yeah.
Uh, Thoughts on this one from Troutwine?
Yeah, so we'll start with Alcione and O'Hara, both guys who have upside because they are good athletes, but both are raw and early in their careers as offensive linemen. So those two are going to be kind of more longer term projects, in my opinion. Um, and then you got Michael Troutman and Malachi Goodman, both out of New Jersey. Goodman, like you said, the crown jewel of this offensive line class, really, really, really damn good offensive lineman. Has a chance to be an anchor of the Penn State offensive line going forward, in my opinion. Could play guard, could play tackle. I think he's a guy, maybe not necessarily like we saw with Cooper Cousins, but I think he could be in that Anthony Duncan mold in which, we see him maybe in some parts of the 2025 season, and then in 2026 he has an opportunity to potentially become a starter
Mhm.
for Penn State. So I could see a similar group out there. Um, he's already well below at 6'6", 310. Troutman, a little undersized, 6'2", 285, but just a really good, strong, fundamental interior offensive lineman. Could play guard, could play center. Um, so, I mean, the fundamentals are there. I don't think there's a whole ton of worry in terms of that aspect of his game. It's just going to be about, is he going to be able to be big enough, strong enough to withstand uh, Big Ten pass rushers and interior defensive linemen on a weekly basis. And I think he'll get there as well. But I really like Goodman and Troutman. I think Alciene has a high ceiling. And O'Hara is kind of the wild card of the bunch.
I will say, after just watching Troutman quite a bit this year, I'd be shocked if he plays anything other than center. I just don't think
Yeah,
he has
I think
the size.
I think 6'2", 285. That is
Yeah,
very much most likely a center, which
it's
gives him
fine.
time to develop. It gives him time to develop because Cooper Cousins is most likely a center going forward, and Cooper
Hmm.
Cousins isn't going anywhere for at least 2 years.
Yeah, no, 100%. Defensive. Let's go with defensive ends first, actually. So defensive. Or actually, they listed them all as defensive linemen, didn't they? Technically.
Yeah, I mean we could go we could just lump them all together and we can
Okay,
uh,
so
uh
let's say defensive linemen, and let's go Cortez Harris, Ivan Kamaju, Randy Adarica, and who am I missing? I'm missing someone, aren't I? Oh, Chaz Coleman.
yeah. So I'll break it down easily here. Randy Adarica and Yvonne Kamaj. Well, Yvonne Kamaju is a little tough. At times, I think they've thought about him potentially being a defensive tackle, um, but also at 6'3", 235, if he's going to be a DT, that's a lot of weight to add. That would take a while, so we'll see what happens there. Um, Randy Adarica, 6'3", 285, obvious DT. Um, Deshaun Burnett, Chaz Coleman, both are going to be defensive ends as things stand right now. Um, yeah, just kind of going in alphabetical order here. Randy Adarica, high motor, athletic defensive tackle out of Florida, plays elite competition on a weekly basis, has been really impressive in my opinion on tape. Um, I think Penn State fans are going to really fall in love with what he brings to the table in terms of that. And yeah, it's a recruitment that Penn State had to beat out the likes of Miami, USC, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Tennessee. And they were at one point trailing both Miami and USC in that recruitment, but were able to win it out. Um, I just think he has a really high ceiling, has a chance to be a really good defense tackle for them. Like I said, plays the game fast with a lot of energy,
Hmm.
impressive agility for his size, good plays with a good bend. Um, really like the ceiling there. Um, Cortez Harris, another defensive end, we should have said there. Um, but going to Deshaun Burnett quickly. Played mostly linebacker in high school for Imani Christian. Gonna move down to defensive end. I think he has the skill set to play both linebacker and defensive end at the next level. Enough speed, to be an efficient pass rusher off the edge. Because he was able to be an effective blitzer at linebacker. High ceiling. I think he has the ability to be a major playmaker for Penn State long term. The athletic ability is there. I think it's just going to be about uh, making that move from linebacker to defensive end. Some players get it really fast. We saw that in Abdul Carter this
Yeah.
year. And some guys it takes a little longer, so we'll see where that is. But I think Burnett's in a really good spot. We'll have to add more weight. He's currently at 6'3", 220. Chaz
Hmm.
Coleman, probably the highest ceiling of any defensive lineman for Penn State just because he's so raw, has
Hmm.
elite athleticism, 6'4", 220. Had to hold off Ohio State here at the end of the cycle to land to sign him, so that was
Hmm.
big for the Nittany Lions. Um, my favorite defensive lineman of the group by far. Uh, but again, raw. He played quarterback for Warren G. Harden. Played some defensive end. He played a little bit of everywhere. He was the best athlete on the field every given week. So he is raw at the position. It is going to take time for him to develop as a defensive end, but the ceiling is incredibly high.
Hmm.
Cortez Harris, Our defensive end, 6'3", 205 currently, so he has some serious weight gain to go, but has all the tools, in my opinion, to be a potential elite pass rusher down the road. Um, Great speed off the edge, dynamic pass rusher on film.
Hmm.
Uh, Deion Barnes in his recruitment threw around some Chop Robinson comparisons to him,
That's
which
a
you
hell of
know
a comparison.
it is. But Chop not the biggest defensive end either, so
Hmm.
it makes sense for Cortez on that aspect. So we'll see if he can potentially fulfill those potential comparisons down the road. But overall, by the way, phenomenal defensive line class in my opinion.
Yeah, which
Uh,
we didn't even mention. Max Granville was technically in this class
yeah,
at one point and
yeah, he
ended
was a
up early enrolling. So
yeah. He was going to be entering his senior year instead. He ended up taking some uh, meaningful snaps for Penn State
yeah,
as barely an 18-year-old.
it's crazy.
It is absolutely insane. After enrolling in August, I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah,
absolutely insane.
yeah.
And then Yvonne Kamaju, uh, again, where he ends up long term still to be determined. A
I
little bit
like
of
him, man. I think he's a
I
freak.
do too. He is a freak athlete. I think he has a chance to be really, really damn good. Um, Versatile, explosive, uh, has a chance to be a really elite pass rushing specialist, in my opinion, down the road. It's just going to be about can he maintain that explosiveness, that quickness as he gains, weight going forward. And if he can do that, he's going to be a difference maker. And I believe we were the first to have him as a 4-star across the industry as well. So,
He is really good. I wish he played at a better school, to be honest. And that's
yeah.
not it's not a knock on Paint Branch. I get it. You want to play closer to home and all. But man, if he played at a big name school, I think he'd be blowing up like crazy.
By the way, I should have mentioned the people we talked about so far: early enrollees, Tyke Hayes, Beckham Kritza, Owen Alciani, Deshaun Burnett, Michael Troutman, Lyric Samuel, Matt Henderson, uh, Randy Adarica, Yvonne Kamaju, Kobe Howard, Matthew Alden, Malachi Goodman, Brian Kordovich will all be enrolling early.
Okay. Awesome. That is a bigger group than I actually expected to enroll early, but I guess nowadays you probably want as many
Yeah,
as you can. So,
For Penn State, it has become the norm for about that size. Don't have I mean, what, 26 guys? I'm counting uh, about 10 summer enrollees, so we're talking about 16. It's about 14, 16 early enrollees here.
yeah, it's a good group. But next up, linebackers. LeVar Arrington second, Alex Tatch, and who am I missing? Cameron Smith. Only
Yeah.
one 4-star among the three of them, but the other two are very close to 4 stars. It still seems like a solid group overall.
Yeah, Alex Tash is really, really good. He fell in our rankings here at the end, but that was
Hmm.
just he wasn't able to play a full season. He had a shoulder surgery, which I believe was his second shoulder surgery, according to the article I read. Which that I think has to be a little bit of a concern just to have
Hmm.
two major shoulder surgeries at
Yeah,
that young of an age,
no, for sure.
and playing a position that uh, I mean, it's football. It's any position really requires your shoulders to be, uh, shoulders are incredibly important, especially as a linebacker.
Yeah,
Um, he's so a little concerned there about if that's going to be a problem long term. But if that's not a problem long term, he has all the traits to be the next great linebacker at LBU. Um, you know, has the size 6'3", 211, solid in
hmm,
coverage, does a great job in coverage. High motor, high energy, flies to the ball no matter where it is. Very good athlete. Can blitz. He can do a little bit of everything. He has a chance to be really good, in my opinion, especially off the ball. Um, Not going to probably be an early impact guy because of that shoulder surgery. It's going to hold him back from, probably playing too much this spring.
hmm.
But getting him into because he is an early enrollee, I believe. Yep, getting him into the program and being able to rehab within the program is going to be big for him as well.
Yeah, no, that is a big difference maker when it comes to guys that were
Um,
banged up a little bit.
Going to Cameron Smith, a guy they flipped from Duke this September.
Hmm.
Uh, I think he's an athletic, versatile linebacker, can do a little bit of everything. Good speed, physical guy. Don't have too much on him. Just an all around, you know,
Athlete, to be honest.
well developed linebacker, um, who I think has a decently high floor, and should definitely be a guy who can see the field down the road.
Hmm.
Um, LeVar Arrington, the second, no need to introduce him and his family relations. Comes from Penn State royalty. I don't think anybody would have blamed him if he went elsewhere and, didn't want to take on the pressure of being an Arrington at Penn State, but he has done so.
Yeah.
He is, I actually can't remember he's enrolled early here. He is enrolled in the summer, so won't get to campus till June, but
Hmm.
nonetheless, I think he's somebody who could play linebacker or down the road could move to defensive end. He has the size and athleticism to play both. I think he has an opportunity to be quite a productive player for himself. Um, Maybe not the physical specimen and freak athlete his dad was, but still a
No.
really good combination there of size and athleticism, strong burst off the ball. Um, I I said in our article today, I could see a similar career path to Abdul Carter, where he starts at linebacker and then
Hmm.
eventually moves to defensive end, where he may really just be scratching his ceiling. But if he sticks at linebacker, I think he has a chance to be a really productive linebacker for Penn State and a really key piece of this defense in the future because of athleticism and size.
Yeah. All right, that's fine. Wrap it up with DBs: Xavier Thomas, Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph, Josh Johnson, and Braswell Thomas. Just give me a quick synopsis here because we're gonna try to cut this one off a little bit in a little bit.
Yeah, Darius Dixon, and I would think Penn State could have asked for a better trio of cornerbacks than Darius Dixon, Xavier Thomas, and Jameer Joseph. If Xavier Thomas is a couple inches taller, he'd be a four-star recruit, and I think potentially a Rivals 250 kid can be a good return specialist as well. Jameer Joseph is a premier cornerback. Darius Dixon is a premier cornerback, top 100 prospect nationally. Those two, all three of them have a chance to develop into really high end quarterbacks for Penn State, especially considering what Penn State's done at the position lately. At safety, I think both Braswell Thomas and Josh Johnson uh, have really high upsides. Not, you know, finished, not maybe close to being finished prospects. I don't know if they're going to see the field early in their careers necessarily, but I think both have, you know, high end athleticism. Both have the skill sets needed to be high end safeties in the Big Ten. And, safety and cornerback in general are just two positions that uh, I don't think Penn State fans should really second guess than any Lions when it comes to recruiting.
Who's your biggest sleeper in this class?
Biggest sleeper in this class,
Could be any player.
I will go with. Oh, that's a tough one.
There's a lot, I know.
Yeah, there's. I'll just list off three names. I don't even know if one of them would be a sleeper. And if you follow us, none of these guys are really sleepers. We are high on a lot of them, but I think Josh Johnson, Braswell Thomas, who I also just mentioned, Cortez Harris, are three guys that I think could really outplay their three-star rankings. Uh, and same thing with Brian Kordovich. I wouldn't be surprised there.
Yeah. All right. Last one I got for you. Give me one or two guys that you think will play early.
It's a good question. That's a really good question. I
They don't have to
look at.
start. They don't have to do anything else. Just play early.
I think we see Malachi Goodman early in his career.
Okay.
Maybe not a ton, but I think we see him early in his career. Um, and I'll go with uh, maybe maybe Matthew Alden. I don't know. I think one of the I think of the wide receivers, he's perhaps the closest to maybe being an early contributor. He is enrolling early, which could be huge for him. Um, so
Oh, you
I'll go maybe Matthew Alden. Could see one of the cornerbacks in Dixon or uh, Joseph playing their way into playing time as well.
Yeah, no, I think cornerback's an easy spot. Not, I shouldn't say an easy spot. I think it's a spot where you could get on the field early, depending on how you play and how you
Yeah,
develop.
and
And
I mean depending on what happens with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, you could obviously mention the running backs in that group as well.
It's true.
Especially with we don't know what else may transpire with the transfer portal. That's not a hint of
True.
anything happening, but you really don't know what's going to happen with how programs handle that these days.
Mm-hmm.
So and there's only so much playing time to go around.
And we will have more on transfer portal soon, as Jeremiah Trotter just entered. Just saying.
Oh,
Just
damn,
saying.
that's
Yeah, just saying.
that's a big one. That's a big one.
Pennsylvania, Philly, Philadelphia Eagles.
Penn State has a needed linebacker next year.
Just saying,
That
but we will
that would
have.
be.
We'll definitely have more on the transfer portal stuff soon. I don't think an offer's been sent out yet, at least not publicly. But
And
they have started to reach out to some kids.
yeah, and it's worth noting with these more notable players in the portal, like Josiah Trotter, they're not going to talk a ton,
Never.
and they're not going to report many offers.
Mm-hmm.
We are, of course, going to work hard on our sources when it comes to transfer portal.
Oh, yeah.
But I would not necessarily expect many quotes from players in the portal necessarily for anybody anywhere, just because they don't talk much. They're going to show up on campus, but we are going to, definitely be very. We're going to be annoying our sources to God knows when about the transfer portal. But yeah, Trotter's definitely going to be a big one to watch out for, and I'm sure Penn State's going to try to do all they can. I mean, we've posted on the board, but we've heard from one source that Penn State has, put quite a bit of chunk of money aside NIL wise for the portal this year.
Mm-hmm.
Trotter would be somebody who would demand quite a bit of NIL. Not that he needs it, considering who his father is, but he would be a guy who would require that money. And of course, the wide receiver room is a big one too. And Penn State is in on Kevin Concepcion, who would also be a pretty big NIL type player here. So yeah, be sure to stick with us over on the Lions Den and Happy Valley Insider, PennState.Rivals.com for more on that.
All right, cool. We'll have another podcast on, like I said, on all that stuff soon. But for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.